Today's the appearance day of some great personalities. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Vishnupriya Mataji, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Pundarika Vidhyanidhi. So today we're going to discuss these personalities, and I request the cooperation and blessings of all the Vaishnavas so that we can try and bring these personalities to life and get an insight into their devotion. I was born blinded by the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual masters are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, and I therefore offer my humble obeisances unto them. Namam Vishnupriya Krishna Abstai Bhutane Shrimate Hridayananda Goswami Namane. Namam Vishnupriya Krishna Abstai Bhutane Shrimate Shivaram Swami Namane. Namam Vishnupriya Krishna Abstai Bhutane Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Prachane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashkachadishtarne. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langai Tegirim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahojita Gaudadaya Prashpanvanta Chitra Shandata Monado. Offer my humble obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who have risen over the horizon of Gaudadesh, just like the sun and the moon, to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and to wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. Okay, so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. I find he's probably the most difficult for me to discuss. He's the person who's written so many commentaries, especially on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. He has a very significant place in our history because we're very familiar with the period when Lord Chaitanya was present, and the Goswamis were there, and it was a period of establishing the foundation of the Krishna consciousness movement. And the next generation, the most prominent personalities were Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda, and Srinivas. And so they were amazing personalities, and they strengthened and expanded that foundation. Now, so there's this term, the guardians of devotion. So those three were considered like the guardians of devotion for that period of history. In the period of history between 1600 and 1700, the guardian of devotion was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And he was the Acharya. And there was a period where we see that also in another phase of history. It can be said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the guardian, and then Bhaktisiddhanta, and of course Srila Prabhupada. They're the guardians that are actually keeping alive the tradition. So, as I said, in this period it was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And I was reading a little how there was the threat from the Sahaja people trying to bring into disrepute some of our acharyas, and most prominently Narottam Das Thakur. They were saying that Narottam Das Thakur was I'll just read it because it's easier to explain. It says here, certain envious persons dared to blaspheme Narottam Das Thakur. Being unable to understand the purely spiritual activities of Narottam Das Thakur, many Prakrita Sahajas had given him the title Sahaja Kula Bhushana, the ornament of the family of imitators. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur appeared in time to check the spread of this concocted Sahaja mentality and to truly defend the factual spiritual rank of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was not a disciple of Narottam Das Thakur because there's 3 generations between them, but he comes in that line. The disciples of Narottam Das Thakur and the disciples of them and then the disciples of them, and then came Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It says that he lived all over Braj Mandal, different places, in Govardhan, in Yavat, in Radhakund, all different places. And it says that he also played a part in this notion of defending this notion that, of opposing the notion that someone can be born in a family of Goswamis, and just because they're born in that family, they become a Goswami. So that was also starting to rear its ugly head, and then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur very strongly opposed that. So it's hard work keeping a movement pure. And another important point about his life is that he's the spiritual master of Baladev Vidyabhushan. And when Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was very old and somewhat invalid physically, there was a threat to the movement by the Sri Sampradaya. They were saying that because the Vaishnavas have no commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, therefore they're not a bona fide Sampradaya. And therefore we should take over the worship, and the whole idea of having Radharani on the altar is bogus. So we should take Radharani off the altars and we should take over the worship. Now this was threatening the movement at that time. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was very elderly. And he couldn't, and this was all sort of, the whole issue was boiling up in Jaipur especially, and then spreading out from there. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was too old at that point to go to Jaipur and take up the challenge. But he empowered his disciple, Baladev Vidyabhushan, to go there. And that's another story for his appearance day. But he defeated them, but they said, it doesn't matter whether you've defeated us or not. You haven't got a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And he was trying to explain that Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. We don't need a separate one. But they wouldn't have it. And they said, unless you can come up with your own commentary, we're not accepting anything you say. And so then he said, okay, I'll make a commentary. And they said, we're giving you 18 days, which is really impossible. I mean, who can even read the Bhagavatam in 18 days? The Vedanta Sutra is such a complex scripture. But he had a dream, and Govindaji appeared in his dream and said, I'll recite the commentary for you, and you just simply write it down. And he was able to do the commentary in that way. And then the movement did not get derailed at that point in history. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to get into too much detail. I'll move on to now to Vishnupriya. Of course, she's the second wife of Lord Chaitanya, the first wife being Lakshmi Priya. We know that Shachi Mata had some interest in Lord Chaitanya getting married because her first son, Vishwarup, took sannyas, and then she was feeling so much separation from him and missing him. So when Lord Chaitanya came of age, she was looking for a nice wife for him. Lakshmipriya had all good qualities, and so she was the first wife. But at this time, in this early phase of Lord Chaitanya's life, he was very scholarly, and he had his own school and his own students. So this is how he was maintaining himself. He was a very exemplary householder, of course. They were inviting people to have prasadam at their house. No matter who appeared, they would feed them. It's said in one part that I'd read that one day 20 sannyasis appeared, and they just accommodated them. And they were also helping people who were underprivileged, things like that. But Lord Chaitanya's character at this time, it's very interesting that he was very much the scholar. And he was almost like a Digvijay, that he would just defeat whoever challenged or whoever had a sort of different understanding of the Siddhanta. And he was actually undefeatable in Navadvip. And Navadvip was the seat of learning at that time. It was a really, where the intelligentsia were based. There's the story of how, that's another story. But so he was in this mood, and then at one time he decided to go to East Bengal. And he was giving lectures and discourses, and he was becoming very famous and very celebrated. And he told Vishnupriya that, I'm only going to go for a little short time just to see the place and deliver these lectures. But it ended up that he was away for months and months. And Lakshmipriya was so attached to him that in separation from him, she started to cry, and she was pining for him, and she was losing weight. She wasn't able to sleep. And eventually, she died from this separation. She felt it so strongly. And Shachi Mata was very upset, and Lord Chaitanya was very upset when he came back to find out that his wife had died. But he was preaching that, these relationships are ultimately illusory. We have our real relationships in the spiritual world. And so he steadied Shachi Mata in that way, steadied himself and others around, and life went on. But Shachi Mata kept thinking that if he's not married, he's just going to take sannyas, and then, I'll be bereft of his association. I won't be able to bear that. So she started looking for another wife. And she noticed that, every morning when she goes to the Ganga, there's this young lady who's also beautiful, who's got lovely qualities. She always pays her obeisance, she has such fine etiquette, such good character. And she took note of this young lady, and this young lady was Vishnupriya. And so usually there's somebody who she speaks to arrange the marriage. In the case of Lakshmipriya, it was Vanamali. In the case of Vishnupriya, it was, I think Kashinath was his name. And they sort of do all the liaising between the families and get the marriage to happen. This is like the Vedic system. And so the marriage was arranged, and in the case with Lakshmipriya, it was just like not such an amazing marriage in terms of this, in terms of the glamour of it. But in the case with Vishnupriya, one devotee called Buddhimanta Khan, he was very rich, and he made a declaration that this must not be just another poor Brahman's marriage. This must be a marriage on the level of a prince marrying a princess. And so he put all this money in, and there was parades, and there was processions and all sorts of spectacular. It was a spectacular marriage. And there was so much money that Buddhimanta Khan arranged that whoever came to the wedding would get presents. And it's described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that many people would come to attend the wedding, and then before the wedding finished, they would leave, and then they would come back again and get some more presents. So I thought India hasn't changed a lot since then. So then that marriage was a wonderful affair, and Vishnupriya was, ecstatically happy and joyful. It seemed everything was perfect. But what happened then was that Lord Chaitanya, his father had passed away some time earlier, and he needed to go to Gaya to perform the Shraddha ceremony. So then he goes to Gaya, and at Gaya he meets Ishvarapuri, his future spiritual master. And they have amazing rapport and instant connection. And Lord Chaitanya is wanting to surrender himself fully to him immediately. And there's, very significant relationship instantly develops. And when Lord Chaitanya comes back from Gaya, he's a different person. He's changed. He's not that scholarly, he's not that sort of swaggering, scholarly, kind of arrogant person who can defeat everybody. That's not him anymore. That's gone. He's now somebody who's completely immersed in love of Krishna, with actually no more control over his emotions. And so when he comes back, his students can't recognize him practically, because he's now, it's not just logic and reason. Everything is now connected to Krishna. And I was reading how this one student would put his hand up and ask, could you give us the understanding of how Sanskrit grammar can be perfected? And Lord Chaitanya would say, yes, I can explain. You perfect Sanskrit grammar by attaining the glance of Krishna. But everything was like that. And the students were saying, but everything you say, the Siddhanta is Krishna. And they went to Lord Chaitanya's teacher, who was his original teacher when he was very, very young. His name eludes me. I think it might have been Ganga Das something. And they complained to him, we're losing our education. And even Ganga Das came and started preaching to Lord Chaitanya. But nothing could, bring Lord Chaitanya to, a worldly level of communication. He was just in spiritual consciousness, and that was it. And even his relationship with Vishnupriya at this time was completely different, because he couldn't relate to being married anymore. And Mother Sachi was concerned, and it's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat that sometimes she would bring Vishnupriya in front of Lord Chaitanya just to try and ground him, and he would just be staring beyond her and just thinking, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And then, because certain emotions would well up and he's going through all sorts of ecstatic symptoms, he would start to roar. And then it's described that when he would start to roar, Vishnupriya would just run away and try and get away because she would be scared. So the students, they were also disconcerted. And one day, one of the students saw Lord Chaitanya chanting, Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. And he just had enough, and he said to Lord Chaitanya, that's not our Siddhanta. You should be chanting to Krishna. And then Lord Chaitanya, in his bhava, he was saying, but Krishna, he murdered a woman, referring to Putana, and he cut another woman's nose off. And he once killed a person by firing an arrow in his back. This is in the pastime of Lord Chaitanya. And he was coming up with all of these things about how Krishna can appear to be sort of immoral. And then all of a sudden he grabbed a stick and chased after that student and chased him off. And then that student came to all the other students who were also disconcerted. And then there was a kind of like an uprising in opposition to Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya thought, I've come here to liberate all these conditioned souls, and it's backfiring. They're not getting liberated. They're actually becoming more materially. The effect I'm having on them is that they're becoming more materially attached. Their mentality is becoming more material instead of more spiritual. He thought, what can I do? And he discussed with Lord Nityananda, what's the solution? And then the solution was, I have to take sannyas. The thing that Mother Sachi feared the most came about. I have to take sannyas. So he took sannyas, and then that's resulted in Vishnupriya becoming very, very sad and very ascetic. Her reaction was different to Lakshmi Priya's. Lakshmi Priya's was to simply just more or less fade away and disappear and rejoin Lord Chaitanya on another dimension. But for Lakshmi Priya, she lived a long life, and she performed great austerities. There's different versions that I've heard about how she would eat. One version says that she would, for every mantra of chanting Hare Krishna, she would set aside a grain of rice. And then at the end of the day, she would just boil however many mantras she chanted, and that's what she would eat. Another version said that it was a full round. 1 grain of rice for every full round. I'm not sure which it is. But in either case, it means that she was just very deliberately, very consciously thinking of Krishna, thinking of Lord Chaitanya, and just being very regulated, very ascetic, very much off the bodily platform. And also she would worship Lord Chaitanya in a deity form. And this was like, I'll read that because it's quite interesting how it speaks of that. I'll just read this bit. It says, the Advaita Prakash describes how Vishnupriya lived her life in terrible separation from the Lord after his departure. Every morning she would go for her bath in the Ganges with Mother Sachi, after which she spent the entire day inside the house, never allowing the moon or the sun to see her form. She became pale and thin, constantly shedding tears. She took intense delight in the holy name, chanting all day long in solitude before a portrait of Lord Chaitanya, serving it as though he were present in it and surrendering herself to his lotus feet. In this way she demonstrated the ideal character of a devoted wife, as well as the forbearance spoken of by the Lord in his verse, Trinadapi Sunichena. It is said that Vishnupriya was the first to establish worship of a murti of Gauranga. This has been stated in Murari Gupta's Kacha. Krishna came to his beloved wife in this expansion form to remain by her side as the Mahaprabhu deity. Thus, she was able to serve him constantly. Dayal Baladev just told me how in Navadvip, this murti of Lord Chaitanya is worshipped to this day. And on this day, they dress this murti of Lord Chaitanya in a sari. And of course, Lord Chaitanya has a golden form, and when he's wearing the sari, it's just he has this aspect of Radharani about him. So that's just a little anecdote. All right, now we'll move on to Pundarika Vidhyanidhi. The main interesting thing that I found about Pundarika Vidhyanidhi is that he's a wonderful, amazing personality, but he's in a tradition of personalities who are not what they appear to be. They say you can't judge a book by the cover. So externally, if you look at Pundarika Vidhyanidhi, he is this worldly person. He's like this prosperous, affluent man, lots of money, likes to dress fancy, likes to have all the good things in life around him. So he's not in the sort of what you would expect a renounced sadhu to look like. And this is like sometimes, and we can ask ourselves, why is this? And I listened to one class of Jayapataka Swami, and he was explaining that devotees sometimes go into as kind of a disguise because it's a way of protecting themselves from, these are his words, from bothersome people. Because we see it with Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shri Shri Nitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We see it in the case of someone like Gaurkishore Das Babaji. People would come to him for blessings. And usually those blessings aren't for, can you bless me with love of God? It's for something mundane. And they would bother him. He's connecting with Krishna, he's on the spiritual platform, and then suddenly somebody comes and says, "Oh, Sadhu, Babaji, I've come for your blessings." And he learns very early, what sort of blessings do you want? "Oh, my son is having university exam. Please bless him that he may pass with honors." And Jayapataka Swami himself said that one time he was in the town Sylhet in India. He said this woman just came bursting through the crowd, and she just went and paid full dandavats in front of him. He said he couldn't walk past because she blocked his way. And then she got up and says, please, can you give me your blessings?" And he asked her, "What blessings do you want?" And she said, "Oh, my sister has tummy problems. Can you bless that she has cured for her problem with her tummy?" So it's very mundane. You may ask for a blessing that my business may succeed, my children pass the exams, health reasons, anything but give me pure devotional service. And actually, I remember reading how Jagannath Das Babaji, Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he told this businessman who said, "I'll do anything, just give me your blessings, I'll do anything." And then Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj says, "Fine, okay, if you're going to do anything, give up your business, sit right here with me, get your japa, and let's start chanting." And he said, "But you don't understand. I just want some blessings, and very soon I have to catch a train. So please give me the blessings so I can catch my train and get back." So the sincerity is only so much there. And so it's a protection. In the case of Pundarika Vidhyanidhi, the same thing was there. Now, Lord Chaitanya had a very great affection for Pundarika Vidhyanidhi because we know that the personalities in Krishna Leela are all there in Chaitanya Leela. And in Krishna Leela, Pundarika Vidhyanidhi is King Vrishabhanu, the father of Radharani. And he's like the father-in-law of Krishna in that sense. And so before Pundarika Vidhyanidhi would even appear, before he even appeared in Navadvip, devotees would see Lord Chaitanya sometimes calling out, my father, Pundarik, where are you? And they were wondering who it is. And so, in due course of time, Pundarika Vidhyanidhi came to Navadvip, because it says that he was a great scholar himself. He was very, very learned, and Navadvip was the seat of learning, so he came to Navadvip. And he was rich, so he had a residence there in Navadvip. So he came to that residence, and he was so rich, the residence was beautifully, appointed. And when he appeared, the pastime is that Mukunda, who was famous for being able to sing beautifully. He had a very, very beautiful voice. And he approached Gadadhar Pandit of the Panchatattva and said, a very, very transcendental and pure devotee has just arrived in Navadvip. Would you like to meet him? And Gadadhar said, absolutely. If he's transcendental and if he's pure, let's go see him. So they went to Pundarika Vidhyanidhi's house, and upon entering, Gadadhar Pandit noticed that he was expecting to see someone basically very thin, wearing kopans, not so concerned about his appearance and chanting japa and maybe with a straw hut, in a straw hut, something like this. But when he came to see Pundarika Vidhyanidhi, here's this person with an amazing chandelier. He's got silver this and silver that and brass this and brass that. He's got silk clothes, and he's got this bedstead that's all ornamented. And he was, all sorts of rich accoutrements. And so he had a doubt. And he said, this can't be a sadhu. This can't be a pure devotee. And his mentality had turned negative, and internally he was rejecting this person as being a great sadhu. But then Mukunda, with his beautiful voice, started to chant verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. And the verses were about Krishna's amazing compassion, that he would give liberation to even someone like Putana. The verse was saying that here's this person who has a taste for the blood of children, and that's why she wants to kill Krishna, to taste his blood. But even such a person, Krishna has given liberation to, because she's offered her breast to him. So this was the verse. And then when Pundarika Vidhyanidhi heard this, he just went into a swoon. He fainted, and then he started calling out that Krishna has given liberation to even one such as Putana, and he hasn't given liberation to me. Why hasn't he given it to me? I'm so fallen. And then in despair, he started to tear his clothes, and he got the silver things and destroyed them. He smashed the chandelier. He broke every little item that Gadadhar Pandit was taking note of and saying, oh, look at that, and oh, look at that, and oh, look at that. Every one of those items was utterly destroyed. And then at the end he was just, and actually it says that 11 people were trying to hold him down and couldn't hold him down. And then he realized actually he's just on another level that I can't even conceive. And I've been offensive to him. How can I overcome this? How can I atone for this offense? And in consultation with Mukunda, they decided, well, he should, this desire to take initiation from him welled up in him. And so he approached Pundarik Vidhyanidhi for initiation, but Pundarik Vidhyanidhi first of all said, I need to speak to Lord Chaitanya. And then he went to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya said, yes, you should initiate him, and you should initiate him right now. And so right there on the spot, Gadadhar Pandit took initiation from Pundarik Vidhyanidhi. I could talk a little more about Pundarik Vidhyanidhi, but I'm just looking at the clock. And so, Pundarik Vidhyanidhi Prabhu Ki Jai. So changing gears, we'll go to Raghunath Das Goswami. I guess, there's some continuity here because Pundarik Vidhyanidhi was born a very wealthy, rich person, and Raghunath Das Goswami was born into a family of vast wealth and riches. They were like kings, his father and his uncle. His uncle was like a second father to him because his uncle had no issue. He was not married, had no children. He was like Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar were their names, and the uncle was like a second father. They were so vastly wealthy. But it's important to understand that Raghunath Das Goswami was renounced from the word go. He had no interest in any of the wealth right from the beginning. So, some continuity from a previous life. And so, when he was just 15, he heard that Lord Chaitanya was in Shantipur, which isn't far from where they lived. They lived in Saptagram. And he just ran away from home. He just ran away and went to Shantipur and told Lord Chaitanya that I just want to stay here with you and be with you. A little bit like when the, was it the Kurma Brahmin? Yeah, he wanted to just join Lord Chaitanya. As soon as he saw Lord Chaitanya, I want to leave my family, leave everything and just join you. Lord Chaitanya said, no, you should stay here. Look after your responsibilities. Yari dekitahe kar. Krishna Upadesh was that spoken at that time. And so in the same way, he told Raghunath, he said, no. You just go home. You more or less you play the game. Internally, you can cultivate your devotion, but this isn't the right time now for you to leave home. So you go home. You can be like he says, like a pounds, shillings, and pence man, and do your duties. And the time will come. The seasons will turn, and then the right time will come. So Raghunath Das Goswami went back to his home, but he actually didn't listen. On this first occasion, he didn't listen to Lord Chaitanya's instructions. As soon as he got home, he just wanted to run away back and join Lord Chaitanya. But his parents kept... they wouldn't allow him to leave, so they had people bringing him back each time, and eventually he had an entire guard on him 24/7. So Lord Chaitanya could understand that there is a process of renunciation, and certain it's like the whole Vedic system actually explains how renunciation works. It's not everybody can instantly renounce. There is stages of renunciation. And even though Raghunath Das Goswami may have been able to, renounce so severely, but his parents weren't. They weren't able to. And it would have caused too much trauma. So the parents had this guard on him 24/7. And he was more or less grounded at his house, and he was just suffering. Now, the second time Lord Chaitanya came to Shantipur, Raghunath Das Goswami said to his parents that, I know you've got this guard, but I need to see Lord Chaitanya. I need to see him. And
his father in particular, it says, could see that if we don't let him go, he's going to actually become so disturbed that he could actually become insane. So we really need to allow him to go. So with the entourage of guards, they allowed him to go see Lord Chaitanya the second time. And Lord Chaitanya told him again, he said, don't be like a monkey renunciate. Markata vairagya. Don't be like a monkey renunciate. Just go back, internally cultivate your love, your devotion, but externally simply accommodate, the needs of your environment. And so he did that. This time he listened and he followed the instruction, and everything was going well. And actually the parents started to take the guard off. They loosened the tightness of the guard because they could see he wasn't just scrambling to escape every second. And even he started to play a part in their business or in their, the scheme of their wealth, because the brothers got into trouble with the Shah, the king, because there was one middleman called a Chaudhary who was supposed to be getting a certain proportion of the taxes that they paid to the king, but they'd cut him out, and so he was stirring trouble with the king, and the king had put an order out for their arrest. And it was Raghunath Das Goswami who, with brilliant diplomacy and incredible charm, he was able to completely diffuse the situation and resolve the situation. It's really interesting how he did it as well. Nanda, can I go a little over time? Maybe 10 minutes over time? So this Chaudhary, who was so upset that he was being cut out of his share of the taxes, Raghunath said to him, he said, my father and my uncle and you're just like brothers. And sometimes, brothers have arguments and sometimes they have disputes and conflicts, but most of the time they get on really well. So he said, right now you're having one of those disputes. Most of the time you're fine. You have a nice relationship. And so if you're like a brother to my uncle and my father, I'm like your son. And he said, so, you should, because he had placed Raghunath under arrest over this issue. And he said, so you shouldn't treat your son with such severity. And so this Chaudhary thought, yeah, I'm taking too uncompromising a position here. He said, he agreed with Raghunath, and he said, tell your uncle and your father that I don't mind how much of my share of the taxes they give me, as long as they give me something, even if it's a token, just so that I'm not shut out completely. And it was beautiful. The whole thing was resolved, and all harmony was restored, and it was Raghunath's charm and intelligence also that was the reason for it coming back to harmony. But the problem was, even though the guard was not there anymore, the parents wanted him to get married. It was again a sort of a way of tying down the person. And so it did transpire that Raghunath got married. But it started to well up in him that, no, this isn't the life I'm meant to lead. I'm meant to be with Lord Chaitanya. I'm meant to be associating with the sadhus, not in household or ashram. That welled up in him. And then he started to try escape again, and then it was like the same old story. The guard is back on. I try and escape. They keep pulling me back. I haven't gotten anywhere. And he was really depressed and really upset. And right at this point, right at this point, Lord Nityananda appears. He appears in Panihati. And so that's not so far away. And Raghunath goes to Panihati, and Lord Nityananda sees him paying obeisances at a distance and says, "Raghunath, you are a thief. Come here, I'm going to punish you." And Raghunath doesn't come to him. He's just very shy, really, in the presence of Lord Nityananda. And it says that Lord Nityananda has to chase after him and grab him and then hold him down, and then he put his feet on Raghunath Das Goswami's head and then said, "You are a thief, and so what you have to do to atone for your being a thief is you have to arrange a festival for my associates, for myself and my associates. You must now arrange a festival with chipped rice and yogurt." And Raghunath was very happy that he had service to do. It wasn't just maintaining a worldly situation. It was devotional service. And he just went into ecstasy. And he arranged this chip rice festival, and people came from all around. And Lord Nityananda was also just very, very jolly, very happy. And at one point, Lord Chaitanya appeared in this festival. Not everyone could see him, but Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were having their little rasa together, and people were seeing Lord Nityananda, not always seeing Lord Chaitanya. But he appeared. And then at the end of the festival, Raghunath Das Goswami asks Lord Nityananda to please help me in my situation. I'm completely frustrated. I'm completely claustrophobic. And I just want to be with Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Nityananda said, the way to fulfill your desire is to get the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. So he called out to all the devotees there, "Please, everybody, give your blessings to Raghunath Das Goswami." And they all did. And he said also, Lord Chaitanya came for this festival and he was very, very happy. And he's given your blessings. So rest assured, Raghunath, everything will be resolved. And so he had this renewed confidence, this renewed optimism. And he went back to his place. And this time, when he escaped, he was able to escape, and he was able to escape for good. He didn't go when he escaped this time, he didn't go on the main roads, he didn't go on the secondary roads, he went through the jungles, just to make sure nobody could bring him back. And he traveled for, I'm not sure, 12 or 14 days, 12 I think, 12 days. He only ate on 3 of those days. And he was not always sleeping either. He was just traveling. He was just on the move, just wanted to get to Jagannath Puri. And so when he got to Jagannath Puri, he saw Lord Chaitanya. He again paid his obeisances from a distance. And Lord Chaitanya embraced him. And he could see that he was very thin. He was disheveled. He'd been traveling. He was weak. And he said to Swarup Damodar, give some food to him. And he said, Swarup Damodar, you take charge of Raghunath Das. And there were other Raghunaths in Jagannath Puri at that time. So he said, Raghunath Das, from now on you will become known as the Raghu of Swarup Damodar. So that's how he was referred to, the Raghu of Swarup Damodar. And Swarup Damodar would take care of him. Raghunath Das did not really interact so much directly with Lord Chaitanya from that point on, because when he would ask things of Lord Chaitanya would say, you are under the shelter of Swarup Damodar. You just simply take shelter of him. Which is very interesting, how things, not jumping your guru in a way. It's like a lesson in not jumping your guru. But Lord Chaitanya did say, when he approached him once, he said, would always say, you just refer to Swarup Damodar. But on one occasion he said, I will give you some instructions. And he said to him, the instructions I give you are these. Don't talk Gramya Katar, Prajalpa. Don't talk Gramya Katar. Don't dress nicely. and don't eat nicely. Or not nicely, but opulently, sorry. That's the wrong word. Don't dress opulently, don't eat opulently, and don't talk Gramya Katha. And then basically he recited Trinad api sanichane taru api seshnana amenina manidina kirtanya sadahari. Don't expect respect and give all respect. Be humble, lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than a tree. That's the instruction, the direct instruction he gave him. And what was fascinating to all the devotees, Raghunath Das was like, everyone loved him, and he sort of touched everyone's hearts in Jagannath Puri. And what everyone was astonished by was his renunciation. So when he first came there, he was just eating the remnants of Lord Chaitanya. But very shortly after that, he would go to the Sima Dwara and just sit down and wait for somebody to give him food. And he did that for a while, but then his renunciation just geared up to another level. And he started to think, I'm sitting here waiting for somebody to give me food, and I see somebody coming and I'm thinking, I wonder if he's going to give me food. And so my mind is becoming distracted. I'm actually, my meditation is becoming disjointed because of this distraction of whether the person's going to give me food, what sort of food is he going to give me. So he thought, better I just go to the beggar's booth. There was this booth in Jagannath Puri where it's almost like food for life, Whatever food is there, that's what's being given out. You line up and you just get some food. So he went to the Jagannath Puri Food for Life booth, and he would just get his food that way. But then he thought, I'm still dependent. And a real sadhu is not dependent. His being dependent on anything apart from Krishna's mercy is just down to the absolute minimum. So that wasn't enough for him either. So his next level of renunciation was to go to the place where people would dump like the shopkeepers would have a place where they would dump Mahaprasadam that had gone off, that had kind of become, what's the word? Stale, yeah. And so the cows were all there. That's where the cows would eat. So he would go to the place where the cows would eat, and he'd get some food, and then he'd wash the dirt off, and that's what he would eat. And there was one interesting, it's in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, interesting passage where Swarup Damodar was curious about his disciple, and he found him at the place where the cows are eating. And then he said, what sort of character have you got? You've been eating at the best place all this time, and you haven't told any of us. And then he grabbed some of the food that Raghunath had in his hand and started eating it. He says, wow, this is the tastiest food in Jagannath Puri. And then he went back and told Lord Chaitanya. And then Lord Chaitanya came the next day and said, Raghunath, you're keeping all this for yourself? And then Lord Chaitanya took some of the food and ate it and says, you always know how to eat the best prasadam, don't you, Raghunath? And then Lord Chaitanya went to get another piece, and he actually grabbed another piece of prasadam from Raghunath. And it's so interesting that Swarup Damodar stopped his hand, took the food away and said, it's not fit for you. So even though he's happy to eat this prasadam, something kicked in with Swarup Damodar, and he said, it's not fit for you to eat. And he wouldn't allow, his kind of paternal instinct came up, and he wouldn't allow Lord Chaitanya to eat any more of this food that was like meant for the cows. It's said that Raghunath Goswami would perform devotional service for 22 hours a day, and he would sleep and eat for 1.5 to 2 hours a day. He would be eating and sleeping. And there's one other lovely story of how he had this friend. Well, after Lord Chaitanya left, and after Swarup Damodar left, and he was feeling alone in Jagannath Puri, he decided to go and commit suicide in Vrindavan and end it all, because he was just feeling so much separation. But when he came to Vrindavan, he met Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, and then he gelled with them, and they discouraged him from committing suicide. And they would just always ask him about Lord Chaitanya, because Raghunath Das Goswami had so much association with Lord Chaitanya. They were bringing out all the pastimes from him, and he became one of the Goswamis of Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, he had this really good friend, and his name was Das. And Das was noticing that all Raghunath would eat was whey. He would just have this little leaf cup, and he would just drink whatever fit in that leaf cup. And all he would drink was whey. And that's all he would have. So he thought, if I got Raghunath a bigger leaf plate, then he would be able to drink more whey, and he would get a little more nourishment, and that would be helpful to him. So he went to this place that had big leaves, and he made this much larger leaf bowl for the whey. And he gave it to Raghunath, and Raghunath accepted it and put a little extra amount of whey in the cup, and he was drinking it. And then he asked Das, where did you get this leaf bowl? And Das said, I got it from Saki Stali. And so as soon as he heard that, Raghunath kind of curled his lip and threw this leaf plate away and says, oh. And Das was thinking, what have I done? How come he's rejected the leaf bowl and thrown it away? And Raghunath said, don't you know anything? And Das is still kind of in the dark about what's the motive. And then Raghunath says, Saki Stali is the place of Chandravali. We're not in Chandravali's camp. How could you be such a traitor and make the leaf plate for Chandravali's camp? And so his loyalty to Radharani is displayed there. I'm going way over time, and I had a few more things to say, but I'll just leave it on that lovely pastime with the leaf bowl. And that's a good connecting point to prasadam time as well. Sri Raghunath Das Goswami ki jai, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai, Vishnupriya Devi Dasi ki jai, Pundarika Vidhyanidhi Das ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi.